Proud childhood, 14 biggest regrets of a school enthusiast. Balancing academics, extracurricular activities, health, and relationships for high school students. Written by Kenith Mallare. Chapter 1. My father as my first teacher. I was standing barefoot with a tree branch in my right hand one sunny morning. I felt my feet slowly gnawed by the heat of the land, so I hurriedly crouched and began to write. Letter by letter, in every stroke, as the soil slowly piles up the ends and emits a coarse sound, I wrote my name cheerfully. Slightly covered by my shadow, my name was inscribed in the soil with my tiny footprints. From a distance, a clamor of children at play can be heard. Wearing a smile as it slowly broadened from ear to ear, I veered around to face my dad. Without a word, he simply glanced at my side where I had written my name and gave back a sweet smile. I tossed the branch I was holding and clapped my hands together. I jumped up and down. I giggled and squealed with excitement while running towards my playmates. We then played all day long. Those times were the priceless moments of happiness I had as a toddler. Born in the mountainous area, our games are very simple, primarily involved with nature. We would pick wild berries, build small tree houses out of pine needles, and slide down the hills. Growing up as the youngest in a family of 9, I was brought up by my parents at a humble home in the province. My parents spent most of the time at the farm and my siblings attended school, so at a young age, I would usually tag along and play in the fields. The elementary school was quite far from where we lived, so my siblings had to walk long distances every day. I remember waiting for them to arrive home as I was either sitting in my mother's lap or lying at my father's back. They usually reached home catching their breath and soaked with sweat. Most of the time, they still aren't home even when it was totally dark. So at the age of 3, my family decided to move to a place closer to the elementary school for me and my siblings' convenience. Lots of things to do as our house was being built, but my father didn't miss a day to teach me something. As always, writing my name was my license for playing with my friends. My father was always hands-on when it comes to teaching me and my siblings. As far as I can remember, he was the first one who taught me how to write my name at the age of 2. ABC's song was my lullaby. He was also the one who first taught me how to count. Most of the time, our bonding time revolved around these things. Time passed and my mother became busy attending to work needed to be done for various associations in the community. Watching her writing and doing her paperworks, my heart always punched against my chest as I fancy the smell of the ink and the sound as she writes on the papers. I would always disturb her and ask for a pen and a paper and run to my father to assist me. Sekut, an Ibalay word that literally means nut, was my most hated word yet the most memorable. When I started learning how to write in cursive, I constantly hear this word from my father. My biggest struggle is that I was used to separating each letter. Basically, I was supposed to connect all letters for it to be written in cursive. It was so hard for me to get used to it. His remark was always to simply do nuts and structure the letter. I remember my notebooks were full of it. It took me more than 3 months until I completely got the hang of it. Moving on to numbers, just like any other kid, I had a hard time memorizing the right sequence, especially after the 10th number. Going to the farm almost every day, I took advantage of what I had so used rocks as learning tools. Given that I loved collecting rocks, counting them was the fastest way for me to memorize because there is a very low chance that I get exhausted and bored. My learning went on and on just like that even when I was already attending school. All throughout, my father is still my teacher even up to this moment. Going back to the first time my mother told me I was going to attend school, it was one of the most exciting yet disturbing moments of my childhood. That day that I heard the news, I was dumbfounded. I squealed and shouted out of joy. I jumped all around. I felt my heart palpitating, imagining myself walking to school, grabbing a chair, and after the tingling sound of the bell, the teacher would come in with a stick in her hand. In the blackboard, I would see the letters of the alphabet written in cut lines in paper-like prints of red, blue, and green. I couldn't get enough of the excitement until the break of dawn. That morning, hand in hand, my mother walked me to school. With an uncontrollable smile imprinted in my small round face as we were approaching the school building, my heart raced and my face flushed as we neared the doorway. With a sweaty, trembling hand, I held the excitement that had kept me awake most of the night. I kept on squealing, wearing a tiny red backpack with a pencil and a notebook in it as it juggles along the way. I hurriedly opened the door as I was very excited, but what met me was not exactly what I expected. There were toys in the left corner, flashcards in the right corner, the alphabet wasn't handwritten but printed and was up the empty chalkboard where kids can preach. I honestly expected storybooks around the classroom and writing materials. I thought we would start learning how to read and write as soon as the first day. As we entered the room, my smile slowly faded and for a second was replaced with a slight frown. But as we continued, a wider smile was painted in my face as we were mostly just playing around with my classmates. Without realizing, I completely forgot about the slight disappointment I met that day. Kit Kit, someone from a distance repetitively calls for me. Oh, I went out to the backyard and saw my father repairing the bench. As he puts down the hammer on the wooden bench, he picked up the shovel and started digging a hole in the land, which according to him is for the seed to be settled there permanently. He pointed to a tree branch behind me and instructed to write my name on the soil. Not wanting to be standing under the heat of the sun, I just did what he told me to. As the sky slowly darkened, Dad quickly fixed his tools. We hurried inside. He went straight to one corner and grabbed the Scrabble board. He invited me to play with him. If no one else can teach you, teach yourself. These are his words. He suddenly muttered as we played. Same applies to life in general. Be mature enough and learn to stand on your own. Don't always expect that you'll have someone to rely on, but also take it slow. Learn to balance your time and focus, he added. I just nodded as I was so immersed in the game, no word came out from my mouth. He gave me a glance and smirked. Keep that in mind, he uttered. I just shrugged and we continued on with the word game. Weeks passed, our daycare teacher slowly taught us how to read and write. She made the lessons in the simplest way for me and my classmates to learn easily. We learned things step by step. At those times, reminiscing the dismay I felt during the first day, I realized that I had to go through every process, because if not, I definitely have lots of regrets later on. So with every way that I could think of, I held myself and swore, from now on, I will never rush things again. Chapter 2: What if? Moving on to primary school, with just a few months after, a certain event made me break my promise. Even to this day, I still consider it the most confusing moment in my childhood. When I was in 6th grade, I was elected as the president of the school body. There was one time we were tasked to go around the school and monitor our schoolmates. With some of my fellow officers, we went around the school spotting violations. Suddenly, we heard screams coming from the back of the school building. We went to check and saw two of our schoolmates fighting. Even though I was so scared that maybe I'll just make the situation worse, I hurriedly approached them. I managed to stop them from hurting each other. When they finally calmed down, I and my best friend decided to continue going around the school. We walked past the doorways of each classroom. Strangely, as we approached the room of the kindergarten, I started feeling uncomfortable as I was staring blankly and peeking through the room. I was in deep thought that I didn't realize I just stood there. My friend kept on calling me, but my focus was fixed in the classroom. I saw the alphabet mats and the toys on each corner. The cute little chairs in front of them were cute little tables. The colorful flashcards were on the right corner. The kids were playing with the coloring materials on the left corner. For a second, I wished I could join them. Lots of what if questions were flooding my head. Adding to the chaos, a certain scenario popped up in my mind. It was my first day at elementary school. The bell rang and I went to join the line of the kinder students. Just before we were about to sing the national anthem, I felt a warm hand around my arm. I slightly lost my balance and found myself at a different line. I turned back to face a tall figure, short hair with fair skin. It was the grade 1 teacher. That very moment happened so fast that I just found myself skipping a grade level. They told me that it wasn't relevant for me to just waste time playing around in kinder. Since I was quite a fast learner, they said that it's right for me to just go straight to grade 1. Don't get me wrong, I don't blame her for doing that, but at that moment I wished I was also given a chance to experience what it's like to be in kinder. Heading home, I still had that thought. I imagined myself doing what I was supposed to do if I joined at those times. With the alphabet mats, sand in a big wood box, I realized the things I've missed. Those drawings, those toys, I was so blank. The next day, I tried to compose myself. I was assigned to lead the national anthem. I still was feeling uncomfortable throughout the day. I was temporarily distracted as we tackled the day's lessons. But just after recess, on my way to the school canteen, I couldn't stop myself from peeking through the classroom of kinder. As I watched the kids playing their toys while the other grade levels are busy learning how to read and write, to count and do math, I was flooding with regrets. What if? For weeks, I wandered around the school to get myself together. I tried dealing with that feeling by bonding with some of the kids from kinder. When I reach home, as usual, I play word games with my dad. And when he is busy, I play with the kids that usually wander around the school on weekends. I listen to their stories about what happens in their class. Having a broad imagination as a kid, their innocent and pure expressions made me feel like I was one of them. That was what made me relieve those regrets of missing out. Imagining those precious moments in my life that I must have spent experiencing classes in kinder, every now and then I still have certain wishes of going back to that moment. But if that never happened, there will also be memories in my childhood that could vanish. Skipping a chapter of school life, I had thousands of regrets. but a part of me was also overwhelmed. As I started to feel the weight of expectations, I began fearing rejections. So, as I was trying my best to adapt, every day gifted me with thrilling explorations. Those explorations turned to memories. Some of such I want to bury forever, yet most of it gave me lessons I would love to remember till my last breath. Chapter 3 Achievements. I was a consistent top student and joined competitions constantly. Science being my favorite subject, I always loved reading textbooks in school. When I was in grade 3, my teachers had to choose a representative to compete with other schools in the district for the Science and Math Fest. Being a science enthusiast, I was chosen to join the Science Quiz Bee. I was astonished. It was the first time for me to compete outside the school. I wore an irreplaceable smile for the whole month. Preparing for the competitions, I spent most of my time with my teacher. She gave me textbooks and handwritten reviewers to read. My teacher was very invested and dedicated. During her free time, she would assist me in face to face. There are times that I escaped from scheduled study hours to play. I would expect her to scold me, but every time she would just give me one punishment to do more reading. After a few weeks of preparation, the day of the competition came. We went to the host school. The school had no bus or personal transportation service, so the school management borrowed the barangay truck. Along the way, I had mixed emotion of excitement and nervousness. I was also car sick, so I was feeling very uneasy. Thankfully, a friend of mine that I greatly admire was also chosen to be representative for another category in the competition. So, to distract myself, I tried to get close to him and talk. I kept on muttering words I didn't even know. It was very humiliating. You see, he was the first boy I had a crush on my whole life, but of course not until now. That innocent feeling didn't last long. As I was very busy trying to calm myself down, I lost grip of the handkerchief I was holding. It flew off the truck and landed on the highway. It was very special for me. It was given by a close friend of mine who unfortunately was forced to transfer to another school when we were in grade 2. She was my closest friend not until she transferred. Ever since she left, we seldom talked. We lost contact. I felt so miserable. My emotions were overflowing, so I ended throwing up. And by the way, knowing that my crush was watching made it 1,000 times more embarrassing. I was so overwhelmed that I wanted to just hide myself forever. After a few minutes, we arrived at the host school. My teacher helped me clean up. Tarpaulins with text that read District Science and Math Fest were hung everywhere. The decorations together with the school landscapes were so stunning. I don't clearly remember what happened after that. The next thing I knew, I was already sitting inside the classroom with a mini chalkboard in my right hand and two long pieces of chalk on my left hand. I felt my whole body shaking. My hands were trembling together with a piece of chalk. I was terribly nervous. I took a deep breath and looked around. I turned to my side and saw my teacher and some of my schoolmates across the door. I felt relieved. I breathed deeply and calmed myself. The facilitator entered the room and cued the start of the quiz bee. I wrote my school name on the board I was holding. I fixed my eyes on the teacher up front and urged myself to focus. As we continued, familiar questions kept flooding the room. My level of excitement constantly increased as the competition was nearing to end. And the winner is... My heart started beating fast. I know it's me based from the frequency of getting the correct answer. And when I heard my school name, I voluntarily raised my two hands and shouted yes. I was astonished. I could barely move. It was the first time I joined that quiz bee and the first time I won at the district level. I turned around to face my teacher. She was smiling so brightly that I felt so proud. I went out and embraced her. After lunch, we went back to the main venue. The recognition program started much later than the planned time. After several minutes of waiting, the hosts marched their way to the stage. We settled and formed lines as instructed by the facilitators. We started off with a prayer, and then the hosts began announcing the winners. My palms were getting sweaty. My fingers kept trembling. My heart beat fast, so fast. My breaths were getting heavier. I was still shocked by the excitement that I can hear nothing. The host then called my name. As I walked towards the stage to receive the certificate, my smile broadened uncontrollably. The first thing I did after reaching home was to inform my parents that I won. As usual, they met me with their brightest smiles. I felt so proud. But then again, I had to do more preparations because we are going to be competing for the division level. Same as always, my teacher was always there to assist me. She never left me unattended. After a few weeks, we traveled to La Trinidad for the competition. There, I reconnected with a friend who gave me the handkerchief I lost on the day of the science fest at the district level. I was so happy I saw her again. We bonded briefly for just 2 to 3 days and reminisced those precious memories during the past years. We were literally inseparable. So even though I lost the competition, I still went home with a big smile on my face. Months passed, my teacher announced we were expecting a new classmate, a transferee, May. I found out that she was actually my relative, so we immediately became close friends. She and another male friend of mine were my teammates in competing for team quiz in Readathon, which is done annually. It is reading a marathon that consists of 3 competition categories: team quiz, interpretative reading, and retelling. We read 5 storybooks for 3 to 5 hours, and after a short break, the contest proper takes place. We first compete as a team, then afterward, we go to our respective categories. Even though we failed to win first place in the team quiz that year, we still went home proudly as we had awards in our individual categories in the competition, her being first place in retelling and me being first place in interpretative reading. Moving on to 4th grade, one of my teachers persuaded me to join in practicing campus journalism. The publication staff needed more participants to join the competition, so they included me and my best friend. That was my first time in campus journalism, so I joined news writing, which according to my teacher is the easiest for beginners. During the competition week, we underwent seminars and workshops. We were instructed by professional journalists. After 2 to 3 days, the contest proper takes place. Following the procedures and the rules stated during the seminar, I won my first award in journalism. The rest of the group also hoarded awards, so we were able to rank up to join the division conference. The division conference happened at Benguet National High School, Maine. Hosting thousands of delegates, I remember bathing at a bathroom made of socks wrapped around. The line was so long, so we were taking turns. We also had to fetch water from faucets around the host school. One of my friends wasn't able to attend her contest, so I was pushed to attend in her stead. Though it was against my will because I was quite exhausted at that time, as I just finished my assigned individual competition, I still obeyed my teacher and took the task. None of us achieved an award. Nevertheless, we were still happy and grateful that we were able to join the division level. The next year, we joined again the district conference with the rest of the school publication staff. That time, I took on both news writing and science writing. Also, I was the anchor for Team Broadcasting English. My best friend May took on sports writing. She was also the anchor of Broadcasting Filipino. Though both of us advanced to the division level because we won with our individual write-ups, the whole staff didn't advance because our average points weren't enough. Just after the conference was a camping for scouts in every cluster. I was an active Girl Scout in school. Every year, if given a chance, I involved myself in most of the activities. Though we were exhausted from 3-day journalism, we needed to attend the camping, so after a brief drop by to fetch some necessities from home, we went straight to the site. We arrived there at dark and it was already the sleeping time. We had a few bites of dinner and quickly set up our sleeping garments. After the long day, we just left it all away. The next day, it was as if we forgot about the exhaustion. We found ourselves enjoying the challenges and activities. We climbed the mountains, attempted cooking without any utensils, accomplished mission, and most of all, strengthened the value of leadership and goodwill through various activities arranged by the Scout Masters. After another 2 days and 3 nights of being away from home, I carried myself to bed and spent one day doing nothing and just relaxed. With the help of our ever-supportive school paper advisor, I won 3rd place in science writing and 10th place in news writing at the division level. With it, I was able to advance to the regional level. But what's funny at that time was I wrote the wrong advisor. Instead of writing Ma'am Ano, the school publication's SPA, I wrote my class advisor's name. We had to go through several processes and explanations just to correct it, because if not, my companion may not be the SPA but my class advisor. Thankfully, the event authority was quite patient and considerate, so the problem was quickly settled. Traveling with my teacher, we went to Ifugao for the RSPC. It was the first 8-hour travel I had. I've always avoided rides because I easily get car sick. Fortunately, I was quite close to my teacher, so it was easy for me to deliver my concerns. Though I wasn't able to bring home any award, I was still very grateful that we were able to explore the beautiful tourist spots of Ifugao, most especially the Banawe rice terraces. When we arrived home, not only pride but a deep regret met me. Somehow, as my friends were telling stories about what happened while I was away, I found myself isolated. I struggled to fit in. I struggled to catch up. I was feeling really uncomfortable that I hesitated to even talk to them. Achieving different awards and being recognized in various events, by time I noticed that I had less and less time for my friends and families. I even lost time for fun. As I was at home working on with my books and reviewers, my friends are out there playing and having fun. As I spent time at school and traveling for competitions, my family joined gatherings for reunions. It even came to a point where I was not there when some of my loved ones were suffering and needed company. It took me a long time to realize that I was missing out again. Sad to say, I decided to dismiss that feeling. I thought forgetting about it was the best way to deal with that regret. I chose to move forward. I told myself it was normal, that sooner or later I will have all the time to spend with them. But looking back, I realized that I just hid such regret deeper in my heart that as time passed, it became heavier. It became more painful to remember because of the fact that I had my chance to make up for it, but I still chose to ignore.